Hello, today we're going to have a look at Iced, which is a Rust-based GUI library slash framework. Um, it seems to have both a native native backend and a web backend or runtime as they call it. Uh, they say it's inspired by Elm. So Elm is a web-based framework. It's a functional language where you have a build function that returns a virtual DOM, and I don't know if it's called build. I think it's called. I don't know what it's called. Um, and then you have a state structure, data structure, and you have yeah, you have a function. You have an event type. Then there's a function that, given an event and the state, returns a new state, I think. And uh, there's something, yeah, that builds a virtual DOM out of the state. And then, yeah, I think in the virtual DOM you have references to the event type so that it can then be updated. So yeah, let's see how similar Iced is to Elm or to other frameworks. So I have to preface this by saying I'm looking at it from a perspective of someone who is making I'm making my own GUI library in Rust. It's currently still at an so I'm particularly interested in the native variety here, given that that's gonna include an implementation of like layout and event handling and all that from the ground up. So yeah, let's get into this. So let's see. There seems to be a widget trait, which I assume is like the low-level thing, since it's in this crate and not the core one. Although, yeah, we'll see. So this seems to, yeah, width height. I would assume, turns the node of the widget. So what's a node? So it has a size. I assume size is, yes, width and height. And it has children. That seems a bit odd for the native variety. Hash layout. So this seems to be there to avoid unnecessary relayouting. I think it hashes all the state that's relevant for layout, and then yeah, and that should be sufficient for figuring out if a relayout is necessary, I guess. It's a bit of a different approach than I think UI libraries usually use. I think usually they just mark stuff as dirty when changes occur, but I can see how in this type of framework that would be useful, because you kind of re-render whole components at a time, so you're not really sure what changed, or at least figuring out what changed is not free, as it might be in other paradigms. Okay, so nodes. Is that a runtime level abstraction? No, it's not. So the children, with children. Oh, this isn't a trait, this is struct. Okay. I see. What are bounds? Are those global? I think they're global. Yes. But why does the runtime need a tree of just sizes? That's a bit weird. So draw takes self, render defaults, whatever that is. No, actually default. Okay, some theming type thing. And it takes a viewport, cursor position, layout. What's a layout? Just contain the node. It does. Okay, I guess the idea here is that it really never mutates itself. No, it would have to, if it has width and height. Strange. Okay. Overlay seems interesting. Returns an option of element. What is element? Okay, specific to overlays. Overlay. The trait. And this is also, no, wrong. Let's implement overlay. Does this? A generic overlay. You'd have to implement overlay. But it doesn't. How? Oh, here. Yes. That makes sense. But since this is a box, that means this has to always allocate the new box. I think. Yes, this is owned. Seems a little bit suboptimal, but we'll see. Okay, render. Overlays the overlay. Okay, it renders the overlay. What? No. Okay, I see. This is the same output as widgets return. Yes. Okay. That's null. Interesting. Why does it only provide an overlay option though? Is there still more concrete implementations? How about... Okay. So this would presumably... Yes. Okay. Ah, yes. Render. Okay, what is this now? It's device. Web GPU. Okay. Does this actually contain widgets? So what does it actually do? Okay, so there's draw. Why don't I find draw here? No, so the idea is that each element has a renderer. But this is also a trait. Okay, let's let's look at what's in core. This doesn't seem to contain any like widget or element abstraction. What? Strange. What's the commonality then? So there seems to be some abstraction of runtimes. Core futures. This error. What's this error? Okay, derive macro for errors. um, core. Okay. Is this even the same toolkit? Or is it just a collection of different ones? Okay, so there's examples. Let's go there. Sandbox. Run. Now there seems to be some application abstraction. Okay, we have element. Oh, runtime. Where does element come from? What is runtime? When it is runtime? Let's go to elements. Okay. So it seems like element is something different depending on if it's native or web. And there's not really a trait forcing them to be the same. Which would make it hard to maintain, wouldn't it? Like they'd have to be the same widget sets. Impl widget. also a treat. Okay, here's I think they're really just trying to be compatible. Okay, it seems like it would cause a bit of a problem if the two implementations were to accidentally diverge, because there's nothing forcing them to not to diverge. Well, perhaps they have some sort of test cases for that, but still seems a bit sus to me. Or still seems a bit weird to me. Like, just instinctively, I would think I think I would go for having a button trait, and then on some like render or backend or runtime structure or trait have an associated item for each of the widgets you need, or something like that. That would like compile time force you to have all of those elements. But yeah, I don't know. This probably isn't too bad either, because it would just, you'd notice it if there was some incompatibility, I guess. But yeah, well, surely wasn't what I was expecting. All right. So then let's look at element in native. Takes a widget, does it, boxes it. Right. So, and widget is the low level thing. So this seems to mirror what like Flutter is doing, I believe. They have in Flutter what's called widget here is render object. Is it render object? No, it's It is indeed render object. All right. And then element is more like Flutter's widget, or at least so it seems to me. But since element takes a widget, and the widget is the render object, so if I want to use a button, how do I do that? Where's the example? Yes, here. Column. Is column an element? Oh, into. All right. So I guess button implements into element or something. Yes. Element implements from button, but that's basically the same thing. All right. I see. So you effect I think it's a bit different in Flutter, because you're not just returning a widget you're not just returning, like in Flutter, you wouldn't return a render object. You would also not return something that directly contains a render object. Rather, you would return a thing that describes how to build a render object, which this is not. So text new is text push. What is push? Push into element. Okay. So and text is okay. I see. So you can essentially directly push widgets. Element is just a wrapper then. So that means the widget itself is a bit different because it gets recreated every time. Now the question is, does it somehow still retain some state, or is it more like more immediate mode style where, yeah, let's see. Okay, so the widget trait. Draw. So we notice here it only takes an immutable reference to self. Meaning, let's see here. Button. This is the web button. Let's go to the native button. Does it on event that's mutable? Interesting. Draw. Okay, it doesn't seem to mutate, which I guess it wouldn't have to on render, but on event it does. Self dot state equals true. So the question here is, this is pressed. Does this need to survive across a view rebuild thing? Because if it does, then there needs to be some. Okay, state is interesting. Perhaps state is somehow copied over. New. Yes, so on new, you provided state and content. Now, does this apply for every widget? Text. No, that just takes a label. So state. Okay, we need, oh, here. Ooh, okay. So you have to give it the mutable state it needs. So yes, it does persist. That's very interesting. I'm starting to like this. Now, obviously, this, like most frameworks built in this style, would presumably allocate memory. Like, let's see what push does. Children is avec, yes. So even that's maybe a bit suboptimal because you call push, so it might even need to reallocate because it doesn't know the capacity up front, which again suboptimal. Maybe there should be some sort of macro. Like that's what I would go for here, is having a column macro, which would also reduce all those calls to push, and it would have a capacity. I believe the back macro has a capacity. Would be a bit dumb if it didn't. So, oh no, that makes sense. Yes, you get a mute on self. Now, how do subcomponents work? So I think this doesn't contain widgets, does it? Or elements, or wait, what does that implement? Sandbox. Any other examples where composition is actually used? Message. Ooh, that's a good question. Is message global, or can I further contextualize it per component or something? Or is there even something like a component? I'm looking for something a little bit more complex. Let's look at to-dos. Maybe that's sufficiently complex. Okay, so this implements application. What? Isn't that the same as sandbox? What is sandbox then? New title update view. New title update view. Or T is sandbox. Oh, I see. Application. An application wraps a sandbox. Oh, no. Application application for T, where T is sandbox. Still a bit strange. Like, why would there also be an application trait? Huh. Let's see, where does this come from? I guess it has a run method. Also has a run method. What? I'm incredibly confused. Use window. Maybe it's actually documented. Offers a simplified interface. I see. So it's really just less methods. Yes, less methods. And maybe simpler constraints. Settings. Ooh, no, it also has self.flags. Okay, yes, it is simpler. Okay, I see its purpose. Okay, where were we? to-dos. We have state. Okay, I don't think task date view. Okay, so it really is like a lot like Elm, I think. Has task message and so on, but this doesn't implement a trait. So that means it has to be manually called. So let's find references to this. Yes, that makes total sense. So there is kind of like components, but they only, yeah, they're just structs with some methods, and that obviously gives you the freedom to, yeah, to not structure your stuff strictly by components. I'm not, you could probably then like shift at what level you do update and at what level you do view, although it's a bit of a question whether you'd want to do that, but it looks like a nice abstraction. Yes. Assume this is just a wrapper. It returns a button, yes. Now obviously this component or whatever you want to call it not being a trait might be an issue. Like you can't easily abstract certain. So like say in some cases you'd want to make something generic over a component maybe. But I guess in many of those cases you could also make it generic over an element. Wait, element is not a trait. No, it's a struct, yes. But you could pass an element to a function, and so if you just do like, say you want to make a button component that wraps another thing in it, then you could accept the element and use that to continue to do additional processing. But there's probably some cases where it would be nice to be generic over a component, but I cannot think of one offhand. So yeah. So what I've seen so far seems to imply it would have to re-render the whole thing whenever view is called. And since view is a global thing, view can't be recalled for only a certain component. So in like web frameworks like Vue and React, I believe, the render method, or in use case template, is only re-rendered when something changes in that component. Now, one interesting note to add here is normal GUI frameworks usually have, or normal frameworks in this style, like React or Vue or Flutter, have the issue of when you have a list or a column in this case, you have to sometimes add a key to entries in there because you sometimes have to add a key to each entry or to some entries to tell the frameworks the identity, I guess, of the widget to figure out when diffing into the actual DOM which element should be updated with which virtual DOM node. So internal state in HTML, like state like who's focused, or for a drop down it would be whether it's open and all that. So the internal state gets assigned to the virtual DOM node. In this, obviously, you don't have that problem because you directly assign the inner state to the widget itself. So you have to obviously assign the state correctly, but that's just an issue inherently have when building a view method, and it's, I think, in general easier to do. So imagine you have a list of items and the internal state in the DOM, obviously here it's different, but in the DOM needs to be the same, needs to be the right one. So you delete one, then you have you have an issue because you need some way to identify them so you can add the key to your render method. Here you could just have a list of the states, and if you delete one, that one's deleted. So yeah, so you don't actually have the issue of having to add keys to things, which is quite nice. Right. So I guess the next question is one of event handling. I guess let's look at the widget trait in iced native, and then I will assume it's the same mechanism or a similar one in iced web because it has to be somewhat compatible. So yeah, let's see. So here we have an event, layout, cursor position. Ooh, right, there's still the layout hash thing. Is that maybe a way to avoid some re-rendering? Or just relayouting? Okay. Really interesting. I think that'll be quite hard to figure out for what exactly it's used, but yeah, that could be a way to avoid relayouting. Hadn't thought of that. Huh. Now, let's see what happens in event handling. So I guess let's message. What is message? Let's find widget here. and what was it called? Message. Wait, where? Forgive my clumsiness, I'm just learning Vim. Yes, here. No, message. Where is message coming from? What is message? Oh, that's the name of the generic parameter. I'm so dumb. Oh my god. Okay, message. So, message. Where is message coming from here? Immutable message list, allowing widgets to produce new messages based on user interaction. Oh, I see. I see. So this is... Yes, part of widget. So, yeah, okay, you put in the messages. Ooh, this is nice. So I assume the message list gets retained, so that doesn't need to be reallocated every frame. Interesting. By default, it does nothing. Yes. Okay, what is event? Okay, so this is some abstraction of what happened. So mouse event, that makes sense. Window event, close request, keyboard, character received. Now there's a question of how exactly does this... Let's see. Is there a paste event? I guess window maybe? No. Oh, right, you get clipboard content. Right, okay. So I guess there, yeah, you'd have to like recognize Control V yourself. Yeah. But the character thing seems, because I don't know if character is the right level of abstraction essentially, because with Unicode character, no, what was it called? With Unicode grapheme clusters, I believe. Grapheme cluster is an abstraction in Unicode, which is basically you have, I think you have a list of chars, or char is not a word in Unicode or is ambiguous. But you have a bunch of like character points character points. At least what is a char in Rust? You can have multiple of in belonging together somehow, which is I think there's like skin color for emojis, skin color characters, and then you glue them together with other characters, thus producing like these combined emojis. But I'm not sure if skin color is actually one of those, or if skin color is somehow an abstraction on another level. I'm not sure. Unicode is quite complicated. But yeah, so there's some question as to whether this is the right abstraction level. But it may well be because... Okay, I see. So there's also key pressed and key released. And key code is... There is letters, so... The question is whether those are adapted to the keyboard layout. So if C is actually C with my Swiss keyboard, or whether that's Y, because in many European layouts, Y and C are reversed, and the character code is still the same as it would be with C. Okay, so I think we're now done with like the basic abstraction of how you of what you'd have to know to use Iced, I guess, or at least yeah, the abstractions there. So yeah, I guess let's have a look at how specifically the native variant works and how it would the native variant and how it would do stuff like layout. And so let's have a look at the native variant and how it does layout and how it does stuff like layout. And yeah, okay, so maybe let's look at the renderer trait. Maybe let's have a look at the renderer trait and how that works. So I think this is a trait and then button. Button. But button is... Oh, I think, yeah, I remember. So here, here the render method. Oh. The draw method here accepts a render, and if I believe it then, yes, render.draw defaults. Wait, no. What is render.draw? Oh, wait. Render. Yes, render. Oh, right. So there's a render for each, like, button has its own render, if I recall correctly. Button. I'd have to look at the code probably. But here, and let's see if there's a render. search for button renderer. Button renderer. Oh, there's probably in the no, there's no button module. Oh, it has its own render trait. Okay. Oh, okay, I see. Right. So the render trait would have then be implemented by the specific backend, so like the WGPU one, I guess. So, but how exactly does that conversion? Let's look at button again. So, implements which right? The widget trait has an associated item where render. Ah, so it does have a specific renderer. So, like this would be a button renderer or something. No, because button renderer is also just a trait, and you can't make the constraint more specific. As a widget has to be generic over. Huh, this is strange. So render and then button calls render.draw. So is render a renderer from here? Wait. Self-render. So this does get its own renderer. It is self.render. Traits. So if I make this type self, does it then imply dynamic dispatch? Hmm. Hmm. Now, oh, that is right, right. So this is a constraint with self.render. Okay. Oh wait, does it then the render implement each button trait, like the one top level renderer? Maybe it does. Where the fuck? Where is not examples? Maybe it's not in here. WGPU. iced w GPU. Maybe that's different repo. No. So it seems like that's where iced graphics comes in. So now the question is, does that implement all the renderers? So let's have a look at iced graphics. Right. So this contains the renderer, and it implements a lot of renderers. Column render, text render. Alright, so okay, now I understand. So this is what actually renders them. And now let's look into how layout works. I think they say it's similar to Druid, and yeah, which itself is similar to Flutter. So let's look at it. Yeah. So there's width and height, which yeah, just classic layout. And here so the whole node thing, of course. So you return children with their sizes and so on. But yeah. So yeah, you return a node which is a size, and you get limits which have they have a min size and a max size and fill. What is fill? It's the fill size of the limits. That part doesn't seem familiar to from Flutter, and I believe also Druid doesn't seem to have that. Increasing limits from minimum and maximum size. So what is fill? Can you even set the fill? Oh, that's probably generated when min max. Fill is infinity. Is it always infinity? Fill is new width. Fill portion. Length. Okay. But I think it's a generated value, like you can't set it. So I think it's probably just makes some things more efficient. Okay, no explanation to that. Strange. But I think otherwise it's pretty much like Flutter. It's pretty much, but I think otherwise it's pretty much like Flutter. Yeah. So I guess that's it. Yeah. So we learned how it's basically structured, and yeah, seems quite nice actually. And I think it considered a lot of the stuff I've considered as well so far. So that's really interesting. And yeah, we'll see. Oh, wait, one thing. So what is this? Width and height. Oh, it returns a length. That's not actually. Ah, I see. So fill is maybe related to something like flex. So yeah, there's fill portion, which, yep. So fill is probably how much flex space is available. Ah, maybe fill for like a